Hi and welcome back to Like Maria. Today I'm going to talk to you about J.B. Priestley's An Inspector Calls, and I'm going to talk about 5 key points of contrast in the play. So this is going to be really useful to introduce something different into your essays, something that's really going to make the examiner think, oh, I hadn't thought about that before. So I've got a copy of the play with me. You should have yours too. Let's get started. So I'm going to talk about 5 points of contrast. I'm going to talk about the lighting, the imagery surrounding drinking in the play. I'm going to talk about Sheila and Eva. I'm going to talk about the general sense of happiness versus tension at the end of the play. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about Sheila and her position at the beginning and the end of the play. So as I said, 5 key points of contrast. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the stage directions. Now, this is something that you may not have considered, but it's very important to remember that this is a play. And when you're writing about the play, you must think about it appearing on stage. Now, Priestley is very keen to write clear, precise stage directions. And the one I'm going to talk about is the contrast with the lighting. At the start of the play, he says that the lighting is pink and intimate, giving a feeling of warmth. The family are assembled in a nice glow. Everything is going very smoothly. Then he is very specific that on the entrance of the inspector, the lighting becomes brighter and harsher. Now, this is a clear indication of the family being inspected under bright lights, and perhaps a harsh judgment coming towards them. So they are being exposed to the audience, to each other, and to the world in general through the inspector. So highlighting the difference in the lighting is a key dramatic technique that Priestley uses in order to show that he is examining the way of life of these people, the Burling family. So pink and intimate, brighter and harsher. It really does show what is happening through the play. The second point of contrast that I want to talk about is the drinking in the play. On the one hand, we have celebratory drinking. We have champagne and port at the beginning of the play in the Burling household. These are satisfying drinks. They are celebration drinks, bubbly champagne. Aren't we great? We're celebrating the engagement. Contrast with when the inspector comes in and he breaks the news. And he also informs them that Eva Smith has drunk disinfectant, some sort of bleach. And this shows really a contrast in the positions of the different people in this play. The happy upper middle class family enjoying celebration, the struggling ex-factory worker, shop attendant who has found out that she is pregnant and has fallen on bad times, and she is ending her life. She's not drinking the celebratory drink of the champagne. She is drinking something to end her life. And I believe that this is a clear contrast that Priestley has put into this play, celebration versus ending one's life. And the imagery surrounding the drinking is a real poignant moment when we think that this poor girl alone is drinking disinfectant. It really highlights the contrast between the Burlings, who are drinking expensive drinks and very comfortable. She is in a desperate state to be doing this. Okay, point number 3 is somewhat related. It's the contrast between Sheila and Eva. Sheila, at the start of a new point in her life, she's getting married, she's the one that does the shopping, and she is very materialistic. She's delighted with her ring, etc. Eva, on the other hand, she has worked in a factory, and then she was working selling the clothes that Sheila was buying. And now she is out of work and she is in her head thinking about the future, the potential of being a lone mother. She is at the end of her tether and she is in a very unfortunate position. Instead of going shopping for clothes, she goes looking for charity and she ends up at Mrs. Burling's charity. So she is in desperate state and in real need of the things that she would need to look after the baby with, and she is rejected. So there is a stark contrast between these two women, and I think Priestley really wants us to notice that and look at their very different situations in life. Just as with Sheila and Eva, there is a very stark contrast between the Burlings at the beginning and the end of the play. And I'm going to return here to stage directions because they are very, very important. At the beginning of the play, Priestley notes that the Burlings are pleased with themselves. There is a celebratory smugness about them. Life is going well. And Burling says that we mustn't think about all these other people that tell us it's not, and that there's going to be a war and things like that. And of course, there's the mention of the Titanic. So the Burlings are pleased with themselves. Contrast at the end of the play when they have been examined under the harsh lights and the telephone rings again. They have a moment where they can relax, where they feel they've sussed out the inspector, but then the telephone rings again. And at the very end of the play, the stage direction is that the family stare guiltily and dumbfounded. They are staring guiltily and they are preparing themselves to actually face perhaps consequences and the truth and the repetition. They have been made aware of themselves and their position by the inspector. They felt let off the hook for a moment when they thought they'd sorted it out, but actually then the telephone rings again, and the telephone is kind of the outside world coming in to remind them of the inspector's visit. And we know that the family at the end is a little bit split, isn't it, between the generations. Certainly Sheila and Eric are a little bit more repentant and reflecting on their situation, whereas the older generation have been trying to laugh it off. But at the end, in this stage direction, they are all staring guiltily and dumbfounded. The rug has been pulled from underneath them again. They are not sure. They are very contrasting to the initial pleased with themselves. At the beginning of the play, everything was certain. Sheila and Gerald were going to get married. They had their home comforts, the celebration and the party, etc. Now that has been taken away. They are dumbfounded. My very last point about contrasts is the contrast between Sheila at the beginning and the end of the play. And this is one of real growth and development. At the beginning of the play, Sheila is very obsessed with the marriage and the engagement. She's admiring the ring. She refers to it as a beauty. She shows it to her mother. She's loving the thought and the idea of being engaged to Gerald. When she has been through the mill and the inspector questions her and she understands about Eva Smith, then she is one of the characters that really do develop. And at the end, Gerald says, "What about this ring?" And Sheila has definitely changed. Her response is, "No, not yet. It's too soon. I must think." And that last sentence, "I must think," is a real conversion with Sheila. She's really been turned into someone who must think about the consequences of her actions and think about what her responsibilities as a woman in society should be. So we can see that she is at the very least being forced to reflect and perhaps change her ways. And we feel for her that she's rejecting the ring and rejecting Gerald and rejecting the life that she was so happy to accept at the beginning of the play, now that she's learnt more about herself, about Gerald, and about the world around her. So we kind of feel that we are on board with Sheila at that moment, and that there is a big contrast between her at the start and the end of the play. So there are my 5 points of contrast about this play. I hope you can use them usefully in your essays. Have a look at some of the other Inspector Calls videos on this channel, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you for watching.